Hello, this is Mark Surman, Executive Director of Mozilla Foundation, and I'm here to give you an overview of our plans for 2014. I'm going to do that by walking through our December board slides. Let me just give you a quick summary of what I'm going to talk about. It all starts out in 2009 when we decided as Mozilla that we wanted to do some educational initiatives and community initiatives to complement the product work we do in Firefox. And we needed to start out by looking for what it is to focus on. We did that through a project called Drumbeat, and building on that Drumbeat effort, we've grown revenue to feed into these education community initiatives from 0.2 million to 13 million in 2013, and we've built a contributor community of approximately 10,000 people around those programs. And in that 5 years, we've come up with something crisp. We wandered around through that Drumbeat process. We came with 3 clear focuses that we have: Webmaker, Open Badges, and our new communities programs, which I'll talk about later. These are timely, relevant, and fundable programs that are compelling to the people who we're working with. And what we've decided to do for 2014 is really just narrow in and just focus on these 3 programs, to scale them by growing community and adoption even further, and by fueling both the revenue and contribution machines behind them. So what I'm going to talk about here is that plan. I'll go back a little bit in the history and also speak briefly about the budget that we're putting in place to advance those 3 programs through the year. So let's go back into the history for a little bit more detail, because we're at a key juncture right now, and it's worth looking back. In 2009, which is when I joined the foundation, we set out to do 2 things beyond our product. One is to get more people to actively embrace the open web, and the other is to find the next million Mozillians, or to really grow our contributor community. So those are 2 goals that we set out in 2009 to pursue as the foundation. In order to do that, we needed to bring in resources and build credibility around those efforts. And what we did in that period was grow from a very small amount of donations that were coming in and philanthropic revenue to 13 million today, which is backing our core education community programs beyond our product, beyond Firefox. We also needed to figure out what and how to do these kind of education and community programs. And that's where we set out Drumbeat in 2010. You can see that little brown drum on the screen. And that was really designed to let people run experiments. And if you kind of follow this map, which can be confusing, but for those of you who've been around over those 5 years, you'll see that out of that experimental Drumbeat program that was quite open-ended, we got to many of the key things that we're doing today, like Mozilla Webmaker, Open Badges, and Open News, which you can see there in the middle as the M and the multicolor square and the dots. So that was a fairly kind of winding process. But if you actually sit and look at it from today, that winding process led us to 3 clear programs that the foundation team is focused on. One is Webmaker, which is teaching the world about the web, teaching web literacy. The other is Open Badges, which is trying to help accreditation work like the web. And the third is new communities, things like Open News, that are bringing new kinds of people into the world of Mozilla and the world of the open web. So these maturing programs have actually gotten to the point that they give Mozilla credibility and drive revenue for the foundation, and are starting to have an impact. And as we've done those, we've focused on 2 main strategies. And so we've looked at building open source tools out of all of those programs, building things like Thimble or the Open Badges Initiative and BadgeKit software, and teaching people about the web, whether that's directly through Webmaker and the courses and content we offer, or through things like Open News, where people in newsrooms teach each other new web techniques. These strategies are doing well, but they don't themselves necessarily get us to those big goals that I talked about a few minutes ago. Those goals of people embracing the open web and building the next million Mozillians. So what we need to do for this year, and this is where our goals will focus for 2014, is to get back to these big picture goals that we want to aim at, to strengthen and grow our programs in ways that move us towards that bigger picture. So let me talk about how we propose to do that in 2014 as we double down on those programs. In 2014, what we need to do is really fuel and strengthen those programs. That's about scaling and grow our community and adoption. So those are our sort of yearly goals that are going to drive the big picture and really beyond 2014. And the core of that is about fueling the machine, the community, the team, the programs we've built up over these last 5 years, really doubling down on them. And that means shifting from experimenting, which really up until 2013 we were still doing to a great degree, to iterating on what we've established and really kind of operating well. So this isn't about doing things new in 2014, it's about helping the things we've established at Mozilla Foundation over the last few years to succeed, become systematic, and have an impact. And so if you think about that first big goal, people embracing the open web, what do we need to do in those programs to be driving that? And one of the things that is key is growing the adoption of those programs. Getting people actually to teach and learn the web through WebMaker at a massive scale. Getting people to actually use badges in a big way. And so growing adoption of especially WebMaker and badges is a key focus for everybody at Mozilla Foundation this year to get to the point where we've got relevance and we've got people learning these skills and using these tools. So big focus number one with the idea of driving people to embrace the open web through our programs is growing adoption of WebMaker and open badges. The second big goal that I talked about before we started out with in 2009 that our programs are teeing ourselves up for is building the next million Mozillians. And that's a bit of poetry, but what we mean is having over the course of the next 5 or 10 years a resilient, large global contributor base of hundreds of thousands or millions of people who are actively helping build the open web with Mozilla and using the Mozilla banner. And so with that in mind, a big goal for 2014 or the next few years within the Mozilla Foundation programs is to grow this community of contributors and to look at community growth, contributor growth as our main metric. And so that's something that everybody, again, across Mozilla Foundation, whether they're working on WebMaker, Open Badges, Open News, anything else, is focused on contributor growth as our main measure of success. And one of the things I'll pause to say here, and you may have noticed it on the last slide, is our focus in both of these goals, growing adoption of WebMaker and Open Badges, growing community around all of our Mozilla Foundation education initiatives, is to focus on what we call lead users. People who want to build and teach and bring friends alongside of us. People who are enthusiastic about our programs, who not only want to adopt, but also want to help out. So big focus this year is who are those people, reaching out to them and really bringing them in to our fold as a way to drive our bigger goals. The other piece is going to be building systematic engagement ladders that guide and empower the community into our programs. So people with a small interest will actually help them get more engaged in growing what we're doing. So just to summarize again, big goal number one, grow adoption. Big goal number two, grow community, with the idea that those drive the larger goals that we have for ourselves. So what's that going to look like in the individual programs? Let's look at WebMaker first. And there we really want to strengthen webmaker.org, the website, as well as Hive, which are our local communities. And in terms of users, the focus is going to be getting educators to bring content, to actually build teaching kits, curriculum, starter makes, and to bring their own learners. So how the quality of what we're doing gets better is by educators actually helping to build out content with us, and then how the reach starts to grow and the flywheel starts to fly on WebMaker is by them bringing learners. Webmaker.org is key there because it's the platform where that content resides and where people gather online. Hive is important because those are the local networks of educators who actually work together to do this work. There's also some technical and content pieces around adoption that are going to be key, especially Mozilla App Maker, which is about helping people make simple mobile web apps, as well as something called the Make API, which is going to allow anybody to publish into WebMaker using HTML5 content and let us teach around different sets of publishing tools. And finally, really important in 2014, is going to be building good curriculum around the whole web literacy framework that people like Doug Belshaw have developed over the past year. So that's a lot, but you can see really strengthening the piece focused on educators so they bring content and learners is at the center of what WebMaker is doing this year. And we believe that there continues to be revenue opportunities around that, which is key to growing the impact and also bringing in partners. We've got about $10 million in a pipeline for additional funding for WebMaker, although much of that is still early days, especially around things like AppMaker. High potential, but still a lot of work to do to bring funders in around that. But very optimistic. So then badges. How are badges going to focus on that adoption topic and that community growth goal? The biggest focus here is really going to be productizing our badging tools into something called BadgeKit. BadgeKit is something that is going to allow you to add software on a software service basis very quickly adopt the idea of badges into what it is that you're doing. And so hopefully that'll be a big piece that drives that adoption vector as we move on through the year, makes it easy so it's not a big technical effort to set up a badge system. The other thing we're going to do is really focus on Mozilla as an exemplary user of the BadgeKit software, the Open Badges Initiative protocol and standard. So we're going to focus on at least two things this year, really coming back to a big set of WebMaker badges, as well as a set of badges for Mozilla contributors. So those things together we hope will really drive adoption because we'll see it make it easier for people to get BadgeKit, and then Mozilla will become an exemplary user of that badges software. And of course, you know, as that adoption grows, we'll hopefully see more lead users who are coming to co-create BadgeKit with us because they're the early adopters of the badges concept. And on the revenue side, we may actually be at a point where some earned income is possible. We're not sure about this yet. We're still very focused on grant opportunities, and we've got new grants from Mott, Irvine, and Gates. But it may be that there is some earned income possible from something like BadgeKit. So 2014 will be very much about exploring what new revenue opportunities are available around badges to tee us up for that in 2015 as we move ahead. And then finally, this new communities concept, which may be something that is fresh to you. It's something we're just talking about in this way recently. And it programs you probably already know about, like Open News, which systematically we want to be able to do again and again as a way to bring particular industries or particular groups into Mozilla's work and to help them embrace the open web, learn about the open web. So again, it is like our other initiatives in a sense focused on education and empowerment, but by getting people to think about what the web means in their own work every day or their own industry. And so the goal for 2014 really is to replicate that Open News success in science and internet policy, where we've set up two new communities programs. And so Dan Sinker, who leads Open News, is going to be working on figuring out what does it look like to replicate that success and to Mozilla consistently to do these new community programs. And as we do that in all of those three areas, news, science, and policy, the idea is to find community leaders, our lead users, who want to build these programs with us. And that contributor funnel piece really is something that, that will be key there, as well as expanding Mozilla Festival, which really, if you've been to Mozilla Festival, but more importantly, if you haven't, is a place where you can feel all these different new communities emerging around Mozilla, gathering together, and see in many ways what I think the future looks like. And it's probably the case that while we will continue to grow revenue from grants around all of our new community initiatives, the policy program is one that really is set up to grow revenue around, possibly in major gifts. People who want to see Mozilla move into the realm of areas like privacy or policy education, knowing that given what has happened with SOPA in 2012 and then Snowden in 2013, there is a need for a stronger voice on policy issues amongst those people who care about the future of the web, which is all of us. So those are the three big programs and what we're trying to do in order to advance that big people embracing the open web goal and that big next million Mozillians goal. That's what we're going to do in 2014 or 2014 plus with Mozilla Foundation programs to advance those goals. And the good news is it feels like not only are those programs getting stronger, but the environment externally is positive. The Mozilla strategy we're talking about here is relevant and compelling to both funders and the public. If you just think about it quickly in terms of WebMaker, there's a growing interest and money for digital literacy and code. People are starting to understand that knowing what the digital world is and how it works and being literate is actually core to people's success and control over their lives online. In the open badges sphere, the public wants disruption in education. You see that with things like MOOCs. People want a different approach to learning, and open badges is a key sort of wedge to make that happen. And so there's a lot of demand and excitement there. And then many of the topics that the new communities groups cover, especially around privacy and trust, are hot, and there's increasing public interest and energy around them in general, and interest and energy in terms of Mozilla taking a role on these things. So it's a good time to be doing these things. We've got clear things we can be working on in terms of growing adoption and growing community, and all of that is better than ever tied into our bigger goals of getting people to embrace the open web and moving towards the next million Mozillians. So the questions as we go into 2014 is, what's the best path to do that community growth, and how much fuel or how much energy to put into that, how many resources to put into that, and where are we going to get the revenue? So I'm going to leave that path question for now, something we'll be thinking about through the year as we kind of grade ourselves on, are we bringing in more contributors? But I will talk a little bit now just about the budget and the revenue piece and where we landed in the board meeting on the finance side of rolling out these plans. So let's go into that budget. So what we proposed in the board meeting was that we grow the revenue, which was I think 13 million this year, to 17 million in 2014. So that's obviously a target. We've also got another $1 million we carry over from last year in grants. So if we do that, we're proposing a break-even budget of up to 18 million. Probably be able to stay at that 18 million even if we grow revenue further. But we feel that's what's needed to deliver on the activities and the goals and the work that I just described in the previous section. So just if you want to get a sense of, what was that revenue that grew between 2009 and 2013 from 0.2 million to 13 million, the biggest piece of it was grants. And so if you just kind of, I don't have 2009 on here, and there was negligible numbers of grants in 2009, maybe 100,000. But we've become quite good at bringing in grant resources because we have close partners who share our vision of education, share our vision of web literacy, share our vision of transforming journalism, and have become key partners in our brand and our cause. And really there's great alignment, but there's also resources to do the work that we're doing, which is amazing. And grants have grown by 60% or more over the last 4 years every year. And similarly, and this slide is now about a month old, so you see a dotted line where there's actually a solid one. We've continued to grow individual donations, which is key to what we're doing, both because it gives us unrestricted revenue to put into Mozilla Foundation educational programs as we see fit, but more importantly, because it's a way that people can start to participate even if they don't have time to give to the Mozilla Foundation and to the Mozilla project overall. And donations have continued to grow at 50% plus for the last 3 years. And in fact, what you don't see here is that donations actually grew in 2013 based on our year-end campaign by over 100%. And we closed the year at 1.5 million in individual donations. So this is really showing that our messaging, what we're doing, our programs are resonating with, I think, at now 110,000 supporters of Mozilla's cause. So that's where the revenue growth is coming from primarily, is the grants and donations. There is also revenue that we draw and have grown over the number of years, are royalties that come back to Mozilla Foundation from the trademarks and other assets that we own in Mozilla Corporation. So the proposal, again, looking back at that revenue growth, is 17 million in revenue plus carryover from last year and expenses of 18 million, a break-even budget. So if you're interested in how we operate, where does that all come together and how do we spend? As you can see, grants and donations are two big pieces of that revenue. Grants are almost 50% and 9% from donations. And then that royalty that I talked about is 36% of that 17 million revenue. It's about $6 million. And those are resources, those are funds that come because Mozilla Foundation holds the trademark in things like Firefox, and those are revenues that come from Mozilla Corporation. And then expenses, 78%, almost 80% of what we do is program expenses going directly into delivering WebMaker, Open Badges, Open News. About 13% goes into engagement, so that is, bringing community members in, marketing, fundraising, all of those kind of things, which actually do tie very much back to the programs. And then leadership and operations is 9% of where those revenues get spent. If you want to get a sense of how that breaks down in dollars or percentages by program, about 40% of the expenditures are WebMaker, and then the other half of those are Open Badges and New Communities. And you can see that also breaking down in the headcount. About 30 people of the 70 who will work for Mozilla Foundation in 2014 are focused on WebMaker, but another 30 or 25 on Open Badges and New Communities, and then there's the engagement and ops people. So just to finish, the board approved that budget of approximately $18 million, and the focus as we go forward this year is to grow community adoption, to really see, go after 10,000 solid active contributors to Mozilla Foundation programs, and that's feeding an overall Mozilla goal of growing towards the next million Mozillians. And then also to really focus on the adoption of WebMaker and Open Badges to grow our relevance and our impact. And in that, we want to do it by fueling the machine that we've built over the last few years, continuing to double down on those programs, growing our revenue, getting better at engagement, and also really focusing on moving our web literacy efforts into mobile and getting good curriculum out there. So really looking forward to the coming year, and I believe that these education and community efforts that we're starting to succeed with in Mozilla Foundation continue to be complementary to what we're doing on the product side with Firefox, Firefox OS, and other things. And in particular, as we move into emerging markets, I think that connecting things like Firefox OS and the mobile web to the idea of web literacy and people understanding how it works will become two things that we see happening side by side and in tandem as we build and we teach the web together. Looking forward to working with you in 2014. And if you have any questions, I'm just mark@mozillafoundation.org. Please reach out to me or comment on my blog. Thanks very much, and have a great 2014.